days at this conference where I was able to really wrap my mind around what it was and create a more substantive plan for introducing critical thinking throughout our curriculum and our IT programs at SAIT. Now, I know that part of the Foundation's goals is to propagate critical thinking strategies through educational systems, but when I see interest groups, and particularly the Evolver group and like-minded communities that are searching for ways to make our world a better place. We have a lot of problems in the world, and a lot of the problems that we have globally are really a result of non-critical thinking, of poor thinking. And I've been searching my life really for something that I can grab a hold of and hang on to as a tangible set of solutions that really mean something to me, that really can address problems without being based on religion or spirituality or various belief structures, that make sense across all disciplines of science and art and all kinds of educational concepts. And what critical thinking brings to the table is some tools that I believe can help us solve our problems and help us get out of the mess that we're in. We all think. Critical thinking is looking inwardly, and it's actually thinking about thinking. Psychologists call it metacognition. Critical thinking is about thinking about your thinking with a definite purpose to improve it. It's reflective, it's self-guided and self-directed. You're not only thinking about your own thinking, but you're thinking about other people's thinkings, and it helps you to make decisions. Everything that we do in our lives is dictated by how we think. And yet our school systems aren't set up to teach people how to question their thinking and how to discipline their thinking. We just teach subjects and concepts of materials that we cover in classes as teachers, and memorization and rote learning, and there's got to be something more sound, a more systematic approach to breaking apart concepts and understanding how they work. Thinking drives what we end up doing. Now, if this was all there was to the scene, we'd be very robotic. If all we did was think and then do, think and then do, it would be kind of like Spock on Star Trek or Data, or it would be unfeeling and with humanity. So there has to be more to it. And what we see is that there's also feelings, our emotions. And this is something that we really have to be careful about, because emotions, we have to be cautious not to allow emotions to drive the doing. And I've got a video clip in a moment to show what happens. Then we have wanting, desires. And for example, if you think and you're analyzing your life and you realize, oh, I haven't eaten in 3 days. So I'm feeling hungry, so you think about it, I haven't eaten in 3 days, so you want food, and then eating is the doing. But this sequence of play between these four processes is very important. We have to be cautious about what's driving it. So there's an interplay between these thinking, doing, feeling, and wanting. When you are in a dialogue with somebody, or you're doing a task, and you find yourself getting really upset over something, then it means you need to pay attention to what it is that you're getting emotionally upset about. And you need to be very cautious, because it's important to pay attention to why you're getting upset. It's obvious that that thing means something important to you. So thinking should be at the top of the pyramid. Now here's a video clip. It's pretty short. I think, Matt, you're going to have to just hit the cursor in there in the center and just press the left button. This is a real life serious scenario. So,
that's for my bill collectors.
Matt, can you escape and minimize the video? I want to address a little bit about why critical thinking is of value, and I'm just going to point out a couple sentences from, it's actually on page 2 of this little blue book. Now, the foundation actually defined, it's hard to understand it when you just put critical thinking as a definition into one sentence, but they call it the art of analyzing and evaluating thinking with a view to improving it. What I'm going to remind you guys, though, and it became very evident at the organization's conference, is that the overarching principle behind all of this is that you never want to cause harm to yourself or others, even animals and the earth. So there's an overarching principle about rational thinking, as long as it doesn't cause harm to yourself or others. Kind of a fair-minded, rational, overarching principle. Everybody thinks it's in our nature to think, but a lot of our human nature, left to its own devices, becomes distorted, and it's partially and uninformed or downright prejudice. Our mind likes to play tricks on ourselves, and we end up propping up beliefs with inherent justifications that may not hold up to a critical examination. And there's all kinds of reasons, and we have to be cautious about what they call egocentric thinking or sociocentric thinking. And we're going to talk a bit more about that in a few minutes. But the very quality of our life and that of what we produce or what we make, what we build, depends precisely on the quality of our thinking. And it's a shame that we don't talk about this in communities, we don't talk about it in school. How is the quality of our thinking? And I've gone through a lot of schooling and a lot of education, and I never encountered this until just the last few years when I went looking for it. Shoddy thinking is costly both in money and quality of life, but excellence in thought, however, must be systematically cultivated. One of the Foundation of Critical Thinking Fellows, her name is Linda Elder, has a really great 3-minute clip or so on the mission and purpose of the organization. And I think she narrates it better than I can. So with your indulgence, I'm going to just play this short video clip. Linda Elder, one of the founding fellows. So,
hi, I'm Linda Elder. I'm the president of the Foundation for Critical Thinking. The Foundation for Critical Thinking is a nonprofit organization committed to helping foster the ideal of fair-minded critical thinking in society and throughout the world. We work with teachers, faculty, administrators, business persons, parents, really anyone interested in developing their critical thinking abilities and fostering critical thinking development in others, in the thinking of others. One of the uniquenesses of our work is that we do place fair-mindedness at the front and center of our concept of critical thinking. We argue that critical thinking without ethics creates lots of problems in the world. We're also concerned not only with developing intellectual skills in students and in ourselves, but also in developing intellectual virtues. The virtues of fair-mindedness, intellectual empathy, intellectual integrity, intellectual humility, intellectual autonomy, and so forth. So we're trying to help develop a world where people come together in a very different way from the way we typically see in our society and again throughout the world. We want people to come to situations, to experiences, to conversations with these intellectual virtues. So, for example, with intellectual empathy, so they can actually hear what other people are saying in a conversation. They can be moved by reasoning, by good reasoning, by high quality reasoning. So they have confidence in reasoning. We can see that in their behavior. In their
So I just want to stop her. I'm going to stop her once or twice if you guys don't mind. A couple important points that she's talking about here is, she's touching on the topic of having an openness, to be the willingness to actually empathize with the other person's point of view. We often, in our debates with each other in society, get very defensive about holding our belief very strong and unwilling to listen to other people's points of view. Some of the exercises we do in the conference is they actually throw issues up that are extremely controversial, and then you have a side that you take, usually the one you gravitate to, and then you're forced to take the other person's position and speak from their perspective for 10 minutes, and it's a very humbling role play to experience. Their goal is for societies to be critically minded and fair-minded, and the goal is actually, it's over 2,500 years old, because the founder of this thought process was Socrates. And Socrates was an amazing person. This research has led me to look more into what Socrates was like. And he wanted a fair-minded society. He would take the notion of education and fair-minded critical thinking concepts into the commoners, into the streets with the people, and want to expose them and teach them how to think for themselves and to be a part of the dialogue and a part of the decision makers. And so he also did an awful lot of powerful communication by asking powerful questions. Rather than dictating that he was the know-it-all, rather he would ask people questions about what they felt, what they did, what they knew, and it was quite amazing. And so there's a tremendous, they call it Socratic thinking, a way of thinking, and there's books written on it, and he was really an amazing person. From 2,500 years ago to today, we haven't really in human history developed a society yet that we could all argue is fair-minded and critical thinking in Socrates' vision. It's kind of sad, so maybe you'll continue.
Their actions and the way they live their lives. And so if you can imagine a truly civilized world where people are able to hear opposing viewpoints, are able to enter those viewpoints in good faith, they're actually able to enter these viewpoints and hear them and be, again, moved by them when the reasoning is better than the reasoning the person comes to in the beginning of a conversation or an experience. So fair-mindedness is a very important part of our concept of critical thinking. We have lots of work to do in achieving this goal, if it's even possible to achieve it. We see the barriers that we face. We see the dysfunctional world in which we live. We see the problems that are created by problems in human thinking. We see that human thinking left to itself is often problematic. It often contains biases, prejudices, distortions, half-truths, and yet at the same time the mind naturally sees itself as fully rational. So whenever we're being self-deceptive, whenever we're deceiving ourselves into thinking that our way is the best way, whenever not the best way of looking at a situation, whenever we're functioning in this way, yet we see ourselves as completely rational. And this is a big part of the barrier that we face. I think if you ask most people, do you think there are problems in human thinking? Do you think those problems in human thinking cause problems in human life? And I think most people would answer yes to both of those questions. But then if I ask, well, to what extent do you think you contribute to the problem? To what extent do you think you have problems in your thinking? Most people would turn the other way. In other words, they could see lots of problems with other people's thinking, but not necessarily with their own. And that's natural to the human mind. That's a big part of the problem that we face in achieving our goal of creating a fair-minded world. So this gives you an idea of what we're reaching for, an idea of our hope for the future, and the extent to which any of us are able to help affect that change is yet to be seen.
So Linda talks about a fair number of items there, the mission and goal of the foundation itself. Can you go over that to the slideshow?
Yeah.
She talked about the barriers to thinking critically and or impediments. What problems do we have naturally as human beings to prevent us from being rational thinking individuals? And this picture of a path through the grass when the sidewalk's just a little bit further around is just a bit of a metaphor. Why will we as a species want to take that shortcut? And it comes down to our own devices. It's economy. This may be economy of time or a few steps, but it can be economy of money. We try to gravitate towards shortcuts. Economy is another way of saying, left to our own devices, we can be lazy. That's one impediment to thinking critically, is that we want to maybe consider the lazy way out. Now, we do sometimes put up assumptions and then we challenge them, and it depends on how obvious it is. So here's an image that you probably, you can think about it as you see it and go, you know, that's probably Photoshopped. I don't think it's a tree. So depending on how obvious the observation of the situation is, we are able to challenge the assumptions. That how could this be real? Could an elephant be in a tree? I've got another one here that was drawn by a child. Now, this is a first grade 1 drawing where a girl handed in her drawing for homework assignment. The teacher graded it and sent her home with it, and the little girl returned to school the next day with the following note. This is a true story. Dear Miss Davis, I want to be perfectly clear on my child's homework illustration. It is not of me on a dance pole on a stage in a strip joint surrounded by male customers with money. I work at Home Depot and had commented to my daughter how much money we made in the recent snowstorm. This drawing is of me selling a shovel. So we have to be careful when it's not so obvious how we can be tricked or deceived or wondering. Now, you know, that's my example of challenging assumptions. With the elephant in the trees was a no-brainer, but this one you wonder, and we jump to conclusions and we infer things. We have to be very, very cautious. Rather than jump into this video, I've got an audience participation event. So I've asked 3 lovely young ladies, I think Samantha, Ashley, and Katrina, to do a little role playing with me. And if they wouldn't mind, maybe if you just come over here, because you can face our audience, or stand.
Yay! Woo!
They're going to play their role. Do you mind being the naive thinker? And Katrina, you're going to be the selfish thinker, and you'll be the fair-minded critical thinker. So, a little backdrop to this. The script just starts kind of. These young ladies are going to role model 3 main kinds of thinkers. The naive thinker, the selfish thinker, and the fair-minded critical thinker. So let's go with the naive thinker first, if you wouldn't mind just reading that out.
Sure. I don't need to think. I understand everything without thinking. I just do whatever occurs to me to do. I believe most of what I hear. I believe most of what I see on TV and what I read on the internet. I don't see why I should question the messages that come at me on TV shows and the internet. I don't think they affect me that much anyway. And I don't need to waste a lot of time trying to figure things out. If I need to find the answer to a problem, I just ask someone else. Other people can figure things out better than me, so why should I try to figure things out for myself? It's a lot easier to say I can't than to do a lot of work. A lot of times, trying to figure things out takes too much time, and sometimes it's just too hard for me, so why bother? I mostly go along with whatever people are doing. It's just easier that way. I do what I'm told, keep my mouth shut, and go along with whatever my friends decide. I don't like to make waves. Thinking gets you into trouble.
And you know, some of us may have heard a few of those phrases in our jobs, in our workplace, innocently enough, but you know, the type of thinking that we might be exposed to. The naive thinker.
Nope.
That was oh, I'm sorry. The selfish critical thinker.
So this is the voice of the selfish, critical thinker. I think a lot. It helps me get what I want. I believe whatever I want to believe as long as it gets me what I want. I question anyone who asks me to do what I don't want to do. I figure out how to get other people to do what I want them to do. I even figure out how to avoid thinking if I want. Sometimes I say I can't when I know I could, but I don't want to. You can get what you want from people if you know how to manipulate them. Just the other night, I talked my parents into buying me a really expensive new computer gadget I knew they couldn't really afford. But hey, they work, don't they? They can always make more money. I'm their kid, they should give me whatever I want. It helps to tell people what they want to hear. Of course, sometimes they only want to hear what they want to hear isn't true, but that doesn't matter because you only get into trouble when you tell people what they don't want to hear. You can always trick people if you know how. Guess what? You can even trick yourself if you know how.
Very good. And the last is the fair-minded critical thinker.
I think a lot. It helps me learn. It helps me figure things out. I want to understand the thinking of other people. In fact, I even want to understand myself and why I do things. Sometimes I don't do things I don't understand. It's not easy trying to understand everyone and everything. Lots of people say one thing and do another. You can't always believe what people say. You can't believe a lot of what you see on TV and on the internet. People often say things they don't mean because they want things and are trying to please you. I would like to make the world a better place. I want to make it better for everyone, not just for me and my friends. To understand other people, you have to look at the things they do. You have to understand their situation and what you would feel like if you were them. You have to put yourself in their shoes. I think about people who don't have what I have, like people who are starving or homeless. I want to help create a world where everyone has enough to eat and somewhere to live. It isn't easy to be fair. It's a lot easier to be selfish and just think about yourself. But the world isn't a nice place if you are selfish.
So that's three opposing types of viewpoints, three types of thinking that we may be witnessing various aspects of in our day-to-day communities. We are hoping to strive towards the fair-minded critical thinking approach. I know most of you got one of these little blue books, and I just will point out that on page 14 and 15 lists about 9 or 10 essential intellectual traits. And what they do there is they show the opposite. So there's contrast. So intellectual humility. One of the hardest three words for people to say is, I don't know. A lot of times people are afraid to say that. I don't know. And the opposite of intellectual humility is intellectual arrogance. And you know, I'm sure we've all encountered people who sound like they know it all. They know everything. They always have an answer. And it's the opposite of critical thinking. Intellectual courage, to be able to stand up for and speak out on what you believe in. Intellectual empathy is a really big one, you know, to try and put yourself in the other person's shoes and to be empathetic towards their needs and wants and desires. So those pages are pretty good to ponder. And the other page I wanted to point out is on page 21, the problem of egocentric thinking. The list in the bottom half talks about why would we believe something. Beliefs can drive a lot of our thoughts and a lot of our actions. And you know, sometimes people will believe something just because it's always been that way. Or sometimes people will believe it because the group they belong to believes it and they don't want to be an outcast. This probably goes back historically into thousands of years ago, when being an outcast from your tribe meant that you probably died. And there's a very, very strong need for us to feel like we belong. We have to be willing to consider critically what groups believe in, and make sure we are going along with the thoughts for the right reasons. So those are some of the descriptions on page 21 about the problems of egocentric thinking. On the slideshow, I think I'm just about running out of time. This is a couple quick ones. The idea about non-critical thoughts versus powerful critical thoughts. We may fall a victim of, blaming someone else for making you mad, when in reality, we control how we feel and react to somebody else. You can't control how someone else feels or acts, but you can control how you feel or act. Here again, the garbage thoughts are on the left, the non-critical thoughts, and I can't control how people respond to me, but I can control how I will respond to them. And the list goes on. I can't please everyone, but I can please myself and those I care most about. I can't avoid problems, but you can avoid being dominated by problems. I kind of thought this was a good one to show because it talks about that we are a bigger set of we are bigger than our ego and our fears and our prejudices. So this was a slide that the organizations prepared. There's a whole bunch of them, and this was just one I thought I would throw out to disown ego in its pomps and games, counterfeit security, insecurities, and tricks. If you're interested in following this up, because I've only just touched the surface, and they have a tremendous amount of books. The one book I've been reading lately, I brought, if you want to have a peek at it, it's titled 25 Days to Better Thinking and Better Living, a guide for improving every aspect of your life. At first, it's hard to believe that a strategy of thinking can profess to improve the quality of your life, but if you give it a chance and actually explore this stuff, it's quite remarkable how powerful the concepts can be. The only reason it's 25 days is because there's 25 chapters on 25 ways to try and improve yourself and the way you think about thinking. And there's strategies and tips on each of the 25 techniques. It's very good. But the organization, it's at criticalthinking.org, so the little blue book has the website URL. They offer a lot of books that can be very helpful, plus a lot of free information and articles just simply on their website, and it's really great. A metaphor for what happens if we're not careful, again, about challenging our assumptions is going to be displayed in this last little video clip.
This is the venue they chose for their fake auditions for an advert for lip balm.
We're hoping that we can use part of this in a national commercial, right? And this is a test on some lip balms that we have over here. These are our models who are going to help us, Roger and Matt. And we have our own lip balm, and we have a leading brand. Would you have any problem kissing our models? I think that was fine. This is a blind test. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and put a blindfold on. Okay, now can you see anything? Pull it so you can't even see down. It's completely blind now, right? Okay. Now what I'm going to be looking for in this test is the texture. Maybe if you can discern any flavor or not. Have you ever done a kissing test? Okay, I'm going to ask you to pucker up big and lean in just a little bit, okay?
think they were pretty good sports about it. But you know, you want to be careful of challenging, being sure you challenge assumptions, or else you might find yourself kissing monkeys. So I think I'm out of time, but that's a little bit of an overview. I know I've just scratched the surface. It's difficult when you to look through the little blue book to really get a sense, because the blue book's intended to be a reminder guide for people who have taken a course on it or understand the filler around it. But I think you can get a lot out of it, even looking at the intellectual traits and the standards. There's a sequence of pages that talk about deep and probing questions to be clear and accurate, precise in your communications with people, so that we try to reduce ambiguities and assumptions and inferences. It's my personal belief to indoctrinate and learn this type of technique more, not only for myself and my future, but also for the students that I get to impact at SAIT in our programs. But I would love it if we saw it happening in literally from kindergarten right through school. I would just really like to see the goal that the foundation has being realized of having fair-minded societies for change. So thanks for your time, you guys. I appreciate it.